Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the first Sunday of Lent. Our gospel this morning is from the 4th chapter of Matthew. Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tested by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But Jesus answered, "It is written, 'One does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God.'" Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, 'He will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone.'" Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, 'Do not put the Lord your God to the test.'" Again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." Then Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, 'Worship the Lord your God and serve him only.'" Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Over the last several years, I've begun to see and understand Lent, temptation, and the struggle in my life in a different way. It used to be that I thought about those things in terms of self-denial. Just say no, don't do this, don't do that, and everything will be fine. But then life got complicated. Just saying no and self-denial were no longer enough. I don't mean that I exchanged self-denial for self-indulgence. No, not at all. What I'm saying is that our lives deserve and demand more than just saying no. I suspect we've all had times and experiences in our lives when just saying no did not apply. It just wasn't relevant because the issue wasn't a yes or no kind of question. There were times when I said no. I did what I was supposed to do. I followed the rules, but despite all that, it didn't work out the way I wanted or thought it would. There was no sense of integrity or wholeness. I was compliant, but I was not changed or transformed. Other times, I latched onto values and virtues I thought would guide my life, but ended up doing the exact opposite of what I claimed was important to me. Have you ever done that? There was a disconnect between what was going on inside of me and what was going on outside of me. It wasn't enough to just say no. I needed congruency between my inner life and the outer world. So I started thinking about Lent and those places of struggle, what we often call the temptations, not so much in terms of self-denial, but more in terms of self-knowledge. Knowing myself. There is a lot we can learn by thinking in these terms. When we reflect on today's Old Testament reading, Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, and Jesus then goes into the wilderness to be tempted. We hold them in opposition to each other. On one hand, Adam and Eve got it all wrong, and on the other hand, Jesus got it all right. On one hand, Adam and Eve were bad, and on the other hand, Jesus was good. While I don't consider that that's an incorrect observation, it seems a bit superficial and an overly literal understanding of the text. I'm not suggesting that Jesus got it wrong or Adam and Eve got it right. I just think there's a deeper meaning, and I want us to find that deep thread that runs through and connects these two stories. I believe that deep connecting thread is self-knowledge. When we move beyond the dualities of good or bad, right or wrong, we discover that both stories are about self-knowledge. Do you remember what happened right after Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit? Their eyes were opened. So what does that mean about their eyes before they ate the fruit? They were seeing with partial vision? They were blind? There's something about eating the fruit that opened their eyes, that gave them a new awareness, awakened them and brought them to a new level of consciousness. So maybe they didn't fall into sin as much as they fell into consciousness. They experienced something about themselves and the world in the same way that God does. They experienced the reality of good and evil. Life and their world just got a whole lot more complicated and a whole lot more real. Think about the times in your life when that happened to you. There was a new awareness, a new awakening, a new consciousness, and you saw the world and yourself in a brand new way. More often than not, this newness follows some sort of stumbling and falling, a failure, a turning away from God, one another, or from ourselves. With that new consciousness, we might see pain and disfigurement, but we also see beauty and goodness. We see the places of brokenness and disintegration, but we also see wholeness and integrity. And not just in the world around us, but within ourselves as well. We see the truth of our lives. We are neither wholly good or wholly bad, but we are both. We see and understand ourselves to be a mixture of both, kind of our own contradictions. That's why life gets complicated. That's why it's not enough to just say no. If we look beyond their failures to say no, we can see that the garden experience brought Adam and Eve to self-knowledge. By the same token, if we look beyond Jesus saying no, we can see his wilderness experience as having brought him to self-knowledge. Immediately before Jesus goes into the wilderness, he is baptized. While Jesus is standing in the Jordan, a voice from heaven says, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." It is then that the Spirit leads Jesus into the wilderness. He enters the wilderness having been told that he is God's Son, having heard that he is God's beloved, and knowing that his Father is pleased with him. So whether Jesus said yes or no to the temptations, it would not change, could not change the facts. He is God's Son. He is beloved, and God is pleased with him. These are not the consequences or rewards for passing the wilderness temptation, but the preconditions to those temptations. So maybe Jesus' time in the wilderness wasn't so much about proving or giving something to God as it was about Jesus learning something about himself, so that he could come out of the wilderness truly knowing who he is, whom he belongs to, and having solidified his message for the world. The self-knowledge Jesus gained in the wilderness formed and shaped his public ministry of healing, teaching, and preaching. The wilderness was a place of self-knowledge for Jesus. The garden was a place of self-knowledge for Adam and Eve. Maybe it could be for us too. So what if we take these next 40 days of Lent and let go of the questions about good or bad, right or wrong, and whether we are enough, and instead we sought self-knowledge? Not in a narrow, selfish, or egotistical way, but in a way that is deep and profound, that reveals our truest and most authentic self, that makes us face and examine ourselves, not to judge or inflict punishment, but to seek healing and new life. A self-knowledge that turns our gaze back to God. Choosing the path of self-knowledge requires that we ask ourselves difficult questions. What are the painful and wounded places in us that cause us to act out in the ways that are not good for us or others? What are the ways in which we have contributed to the pain of the world? And how might we start contributing to its healing? In what ways have we knowingly or through fear lived a life diminished from who God knows us to be? What are the patterns and habits that direct and control our life? Do we truly believe that we are God's beloved sons and daughters? And if so, how do we live like that? And if not, Why not? Self-knowledge will take us much further than will self-denial. That doesn't mean self-denial isn't important or that it doesn't have a role in our lives, and especially in Lent. We just need to give self-knowledge a higher priority and put self-denial in service to that self-knowledge. I have a spiritual director. Sometimes I ask for her opinion on how to handle pastor stuff. Without fail, she asks me the same two questions. What are you learning about yourself? And what do you need from me? What if we let those two questions lead us through Lent? What if we went through this Lent hearing God asking us, what are you learning about yourself? And what do you need from me? That just might be the start of a holy Lent. It would be a Lent in which our eyes are open to the truth about ourselves, who we are, and what we do. It would be a Lent in which, despite things done and left undone, we would rediscover and hear, maybe for the first time, that we too are God's beloved children, in whom He is well pleased. Maybe it would be a Lent in which we could let go of judgment and scorekeeping. Maybe it would be a Lent that would lead us to new life, a fuller life, a life in which we discover we are God's glory. Let's be God's glory, today, tomorrow, and the day after that, now and forever. And all God's blessed people say, Amen. May you have a blessed beginning to Lent. Till we meet again.